As you can see, we're still in Sao Paulo at Lama Yeshe's parents' house. We're having a very nice visit here. Her parents are getting up in age. Her father's 83, her mother's 80. And so, little things start to appear here and there. It's just part of the aging process. But considering all the factors, they're actually, knock on wood, in pretty good shape. So hopefully they can maintain their independence and be comfortable and have good health for the rest of their lives. As we see our parents age, and as we ourselves age, we can't help but remember the Buddha's words and teachings about the 4 great rivers of suffering of birth, old age, sickness, and death. When we're young, those things feel so abstract and far away. But as we get older, we start to realize that they're getting closer and closer, and they're inevitable. Some people sometimes feel like the teachings of the Buddha are negative or pessimistic. But it's just simply a fact that we all face old age, sickness, and death. And while we have health and some relative leisure time, we really need to take advantage of it to prepare ourselves for those inevitabilities. Unfortunately, when we're young, we just feel like that's never going to happen to us. But the fact is, it actually comes so quickly. Before we know it, we're all of a sudden in our 50s, in our 60s, pushing 70. All of a sudden, all kinds of different health issues start to appear. And if we haven't prepared ourselves in advance, we're taken by surprise and we can be really devastated. So it's important we get out of our denial and study and listen closely to the words of the Buddha. They're like a friendly warning to us of a storm that's coming, so that we can batten down the hatches and prepare ourselves for the inevitable storm that's just part of life. It's not like anybody's punishing us. Sometimes people read the Buddha's teachings about suffering, the different types of suffering, sickness, etc. And then at some point they get sick or they have some kind of loss in their family. Then I've seen people actually blame the Buddha. Well, before I was Buddhist, I never got sick. Or before I was Buddhist, I never lost a family member. Then I started doing Buddhism and all of a sudden I got sick or I lost a family member. One thing has nothing to do with the other. The Buddha is just simply telling us, hey, look out. This is the way things are, and inevitably it's going to catch up to you. When it catches up to you sooner or later has nothing to do with the Buddha. It just has to do with the way things are in samsara and our karma and being confused dualistic beings. So if by some coincidence when you start reading or learning about Buddhism, all of a sudden something difficult happens in your life, please don't confuse that in any way with the Buddha. First of all, if the Buddha had the power to bring difficult things into our life, certainly the Buddha would have the power to eliminate those difficult things and take us to enlightenment. The Buddha doesn't have that power. The only power that the Buddha has is to show us the way, to show us the map to get out of our suffering. If he had the power to eliminate everybody's suffering and free us from samsara, none of us would be here in samsara. We would all be free in a blissful state of enlightenment. So the only thing that has the power over us to bring suffering or happiness is our previous actions, thoughts, and words with which we create karma. And if we've planted negative seeds in the past, inevitably, we're going to reap a negative harvest. So we're continuing the reading on life and death in Tibetan Buddhism by Chagdud Rinpoche. Last week we read the introduction, and this week we're going to read about the two truths, relative truth and absolute truth. So, our perceptions of an I and of an object and our swinging between attachment and aversion are processes that occur within the dualistic mind. They are, since the beginning, a deluded, fictitious way of perception. Once this dualistic process comes into play, we oscillate between one state of confusion and another state of confusion incessantly. And because of that, we also suffer incessantly. In fact, all suffering comes from the non-recognition of our true nature, and therefore from the attachment and aversion which arise as sub-products of our ignorance. Because of these mental poisons, they lead us into a spiral of suffering through our confused thoughts, words, and non-virtuous actions. This mentality is what produces relative truth. To better understand this term, consider the example of going to bed at night. There you are, between your comfortable sheets. Everything is safe. There's no problems. But through the power of the confused mind, you abandon your comfortable waking experience in bed and begin to experience the dream. Now, this experience of the dream is no less real for you than your waking reality. In the dream, your environment seems solid, just like this environment in the waking state. People seem to be real. They smile at you or they give you a dirty look. Everything that happens seems very, very real. If you win the lottery, you're extremely happy. And you immediately begin to worry about places you can hide your money. If somebody hits you, you feel pain. If you eat something sweet, it tastes sweet. But even though the dream seems to be very real, it is not real outside of the context of that dream. In the same way, our waking state is not real out of its self-created context. From the day that we are born until the day of our death, our experience of life is an experience of relative truth in constant change, which we cling to as if it was real. But in no way, shape, or form is it truly real or permanent. This is absolutely essential to understand. When you wake up from a dream, the dream of this life, there were no possessions, there were no relationships, and there were no emotional dramas. All of these experiences that seemed so real were actually not real in any absolute sense. One criteria that we can apply to understand absolute truth is permanence. If something is permanent, we can say it's true. If something is impermanent, then it is not true. Because if it's impermanent, at some point it will disappear. And then will be merely a memory, which also at some point disappears. Everything in our reality are just self-created images, which we cling to as if they were true and significant, and become extremely involved with them. Our experience is a product of this fundamental confusion. If we didn't have this ignorance in our minds, our perception of reality would be very different. We would wake up and see the illusory quality of our relative reality and understand the absolute nature of reality, which is the objective of Buddhism. The other way, we're just simply continuing on clinging to a dream. And this dream can be pleasant or unpleasant, but it never remains the same. We're born, we get sick, we age, and we die without ever waking from the dream of our confusion. Sometimes, when we first hear these teachings, we think, oh, so all of this is relative reality and it doesn't really exist. So absolute truth must be someplace else. But actually, all of this, when we're deluded, confused, we perceive as relative truth or relative reality. When we clear our perception, when we clear the ignorance from our mind, we come to realize that this is, in fact, absolute reality, absolute truth at the same time. How can that be? How can it be relative and absolute at the same time? The fact that it is relative is because it is absolute. Because in absolute truth, everything is impermanent, everything is illusory. That's what creates this experience that we call relative truth. The only difference is because of our ignorance, we cling to the absolute truth as if it were relative. We impute a quality or an existence on absolute truth that was never there and will never be there. And by trying to cling it, hold on to it, possess it, we create our own suffering. By simply not recognizing that what we perceive as relative truth is absolute truth. One time, when I was first beginning in Buddhism, my teacher, Ajahn Sington, in Thailand, he said to me, "This is samsara, this is nirvana." It meant nothing to me at the time. And I hit my head against the wall. What does he mean? This is samsara, this is nirvana. I could make you go through the same exercise. You're probably much quicker than me. Maybe you already understand because you had more teachings, more experience, more merit than I had. It took me many, many years to figure it out. But it's simply this. This is the same thing. What changes is our perception. Samsara, nirvana. Relative truth, absolute truth. Relative reality, absolute reality. Just by clearing our perception to see things as they truly are. It's the same appearance, it's the same experience, but we perceive it differently. perceiving things as they truly are. Vipassana, clear vision, seeing things as they truly are. And by seeing things as they truly are, naturally our attachment and aversion diminishes. Naturally. In the same way, how many times are you going to go to a mirage to satisfy your thirst? Once? Twice? If you're very stubborn, 3, 4 times? At some point you realize there's no water there. There's nothing there that's going to satisfy my thirst. In the same way, when we permit our minds and remember again and again what is really happening here, slowly, gradually, but steadily, we give up trying to find something that will actually satisfy us in relative reality. And realize that by resting in the absolute truth, all our desires are satisfied.